Brownfield sites, empty storefronts, discount vape shops,
What up, Puff Club?
and dollar stores. Signs of decline are everywhere in this town. Welcome to Kewanee, Illinois, the self-proclaimed Hog Capital of the world. At one point, this place was booming. Kewanee Boiler was heating America, downtown was alive, and Hog Days brought in people from all over. But today, not so much. I mean, the hogs are fine, but a lot of Kewanee feels like a place that's been waiting 40 years for something big to happen, and it hasn't. Stick around until the end to see how Kewanee stacks up against other small Illinois towns like Streeter in the Chris Livability Score, and let's just say that when we get to the economy, things don't really look all that great on the scorecard. The closest large city to Kewanee is the Quad Cities, sitting about 45 miles to the northwest. Peoria is also about the same distance away. Only difference is you can hop on I-80 and cruise 90 if you really want to. Whereas, the only connection to Peoria is a series of two-lane highways. Otherwise, there's not much else around this town. It's not quite Forgotonia territory, but give it 20 more years and it might be included in it. Kewanee calls itself the Hog Capital of the world, but if we're being honest, the hogs are doing better than the people. Look, if you're a local, don't take that personally, because I would argue that hogs are happier than people everywhere, especially the ones out of state who don't have to pay Illinois property taxes. I'll be here all week. Anyway, this obsession that Kewanee has over hogs goes back to 1948, when the Department of Agriculture crowned Henry County the #1 pork-producing county in the country. That led to the creation of the Hog Days festival in 1954, and it's been running every Labor Day weekend ever since. These days, the town draws around 50,000 people to celebrate pigs, which is the busiest that Kewanee ever gets. You think I'm kidding? Kewanee basically turns into the French Quarter. Just substitute alcohol with pork chops. Carnival rides will line up the streets, Mountain Dew is in stock at food stands every 10 feet, bacon grease clogs up all the storm drains. Yeah, it's a good time. Other events that tag along with the Hog Days includes a beauty contest, a golf tournament, a big parade, a 4-mile run that they call the Stampede, and even a classic car cruise where they dust off local area Model Ts. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. Now that being said, subscribe, like, and comment. Otherwise I'll send the Hog Days parade to your front yard. Oh yeah, I have that kind of power. Don't believe me, you'll find out pretty quick. You know, Kewanee really needs Hog Days because without it, the biggest celebration happening here would be whenever the Dollar General restocks their Mountain Dew cooler.
I'm kind of flabbergasted when you say things like that. It's weird.
Like it is for many Illinois towns of this size, the economy here is, well, not great. The median household income is just under $50,000 per year. For comparison, that's almost $34,000 below the Illinois state average. The poverty rate? 15.1%. Then combine that with the fact that the median home value here is only $70,000, it tells you a lot about where the local housing market sits. And get this, the mean travel time to work is only 18.5 minutes. I mean, that's nice for traffic, that's not a long commute time comparatively speaking, but what I saw from that was something else, because it tells me that people aren't commuting out to higher paying job markets like the Quad Cities or Peoria. They're staying here, and people who work in the Quad Cities or Peoria who want to live in a small rural town are picking towns that are much closer to their work to live in, so Kewanee doesn't really benefit economically from either of those metro areas. Additionally, only 15.1% of adults 25 and older hold a bachelor's degree or higher, and just 83.4% have graduated high school. That's not a good sign for future economic growth. If you've seen my other videos, you know that this is one of the hardest things for rural towns to overcome. Companies that will offer higher paying jobs look for skilled labor pools when deciding where to set up shop, and when they see numbers like these, towns like Kewanee usually don't even get a second look. In 2016, Kewanee transformed its state prison into a Life Skills Reentry Center, which honestly feels like the most Kewanee thing ever. That's right, the Kewanee Life Skills Reentry Center is now tied with the hospital and Walmart as being the largest employers in town these days, with all three employing around 300 people. Back when the Life Skills Reentry Center was a state prison, I'm sure it employed much more. After that, it's a nursing home that employs 280, and Great Dane,
what up, Great Dane?
Which employs 250. It says a lot when Walmart, a prison, and a nursing home are carrying the local economy. Real dream team stuff right there. Speaking of major employers, another big one from Kewanee's past, and the one that really built this town, was the Kewanee Boiler Company. In fact, Kewanee Boiler shaped the town's identity even more than Hog Days and pig parades combined. Boiler making in Kewanee actually started before Kewanee Boiler itself, way back in 1868, when a guy named Valerius D. Anderson,
what up, Valerius D. Anderson?
Started a company that produced boilers. The dude basically looked at the town and said, yeah, this looks like a perfect place to build some giant steam tanks, let's get to it. Well, Anderson eventually sold his factory to William Haxton, who renamed it to the Haxton Steam Heater Company. The company expanded into manufacturing tubes, pipes, and various valves associated with boilers, and before you know it, business was booming. Which, by the way, that's also the exact sound these boilers would make if you didn't maintain them. In 1891, Haxton retired and sold it to the National Tube Company, which renamed it to the Western Tube Company. You know, I'm starting to think that half of Kewanee's history is really just people renaming the same factory over and over again and pretending that it's a fresh start. Following that, the owner of the Western Tube Company left, and that's when the employees of the factory stepped up. That's right, they banded together and officially formed the Kewanee Boiler Company in 1891 and built a larger facility at 101 Franklin Street. Imagine your coworkers today trying to band together and start a company like that. Yeah, most of us would probably last about 15 minutes before someone in the group screws it all up. By 1906, production at Kewanee Boiler reached max capacity and the company employed as many as 4,000 workers. It wasn't just a job. No, it was the identity of the town. Businesses, restaurants, and pretty much all economic activity here revolved around this factory. Then came the recession of 1907, and employment dropped about 2,000. But still, that's 7 times as many workers as what the largest employer in Kewanee has today. Eventually, all great things come to an end though, right? Because over the years, the company saw a string of buyouts, and with each one, the Kewanee Boiler Company lost more control of its own future. By the 1980s and 90s, demand for the larger industrial boilers was shrinking. The market was shifting towards smaller and more efficient heating systems. So this factory that once symbolized Kewanee's pride, by then it was too big, too old, and too expensive to keep running compared to other competitors with newer plants elsewhere. Finally, in 2002, the parent company, Burnham, decided that it wasn't worth it anymore. They ended production, shut the doors, and just like that, the company that built Kewanee's identity for more than a century was gone. The plant has been sitting around ever since, and in 2023, a fire ended up destroying the main boiler building, so this is all that's left. At one point, Kewanee Boiler was heating homes all across America. But today, half of the buildings in downtown don't even have heat. It's fair to assume that though, right? When you look around, so many buildings here are vacant, boarded up, or crumbling. You can tell that downtown used to have way more life, but these days, it feels more like a museum of what it once was. So yeah, as you can see, things look pretty dead here. At least the town isn't short of having any murals to remind you of what the town was like back then. And honestly, it's pretty cool to see these. It's better than seeing empty walls, that's for sure, and really these murals just help remind people of the identity of the town. These are some cool older signs here. Another one on the other side of the door. Confederate flag flying SUV right there. You know, there's a lot of things in life that I don't get. That I will never get, ever. I don't understand the pride of flying one of those. A few more things to mention here, as in 1836, land was purchased in the area and a town called Wethersfield grew to have a population of around 130 within a few years. But then in 1852, a new railroad was proposed to run between Galesburg and Chicago. Once it was finally built, it bypassed Wethersfield entirely, and just like that, the writing was on the wall for that town. 2 years later in 1854, a new town was laid out and was named Kewanee, a Winnebago Indian word for prairie chicken, since those were common in the area back then. Not exactly the most intimidating name for a boomtown, but hey, it worked. By 1856, Kewanee became a full-on railroad boomtown, and because of the railroad, most people who lived in Wethersfield packed their bags and moved to the new town of Kewanee. By 1924, Kewanee had successfully annexed Wethersfield. Shortly after that, the population spiked with the success of the boiler factory, but ever since 1930, it's been a very long yet slow decline. Alright, well it's time to see how Kewanee stacks up against other rural Illinois places like Streator and Putnam County. Spoiler alert, this one's going to be rough. It's time to give Kewanee a Chris Livability Score.
Education.
Oh boy, here we go. Kewanee High School does not have good numbers. If you were watching earlier, you probably heard me mention that only 83% of Kewanee adults graduated high school. Yeah. The graduation rate currently is only 82%, which basically means that that number is getting worse and that 1 out of every 5 students here majors in quitting. Apparently senior skip day lasts all year. That isn't good. Education gets a 3 out of 20.
Crime.
The violent crime rate is 441 for every 100,000 residents, while the property crime rate is 2,449 for every 100,000 residents. Both of those rates are slightly above the national average, so it could be better, but it could also be worse. Crime gets a 10 out of 20.
Downtown.
Well, it hosts the annual Hog Days, which sees 50,000 people a year, so it's doing something right. But every other day of the year, more often than not, it looks like what you saw in this video. Sure, there's plenty of occupied storefronts, but there's also plenty of unoccupied storefronts. It has potential, but I'm not holding my breath. Downtown gets a 10 out of 20.
Economy.
I talked about this earlier. The median household income in Kewanee is $34,000 per year less than the state. There's only a few companies in town that hire over a few hundred people, and with Kewanee being isolated from interstate highways and being far away from larger cities, it's really hard to see the economy for Kewanee turning around anytime soon. Economy gets a 3 out of 20.
Environment.
As you can imagine, the large Kewanee boiler factory left behind a massive amount of asbestos. You also have to wonder what other groundwater contaminants there could be from the factory that just haven't either been discovered yet or reported. Environment gets a 12 out of 20.
Recreation.
Are you serious right now? Recreation? You have to drive an hour east or an hour west to get to either the Illinois or Mississippi rivers. To the east, there's a few nice state parks along the Illinois River. To the west, same thing with the Mississippi River, but honestly, there's not much around here. Recreation gets a 2 out of 20.
History.
The Kewanee Boiler Company once employed 4,000 people. At one point, it was the largest boiler-making factory in the world.
It's a massive plant, one of the biggest in the world.
Something that I didn't mention earlier is that there was once a minor league baseball team here called the Kewanee Boilermakers, which was an affiliate of the Philadelphia Athletics, which eventually became the Oakland Athletics, now the Sacramento A's, and soon to be the Las Vegas A's. Anyway, history gets a 13 out of 20.
Amenities.
For some people, just having a Walmart in town is good enough. For others, it's not. From here, you have to drive at least 45 minutes away until you get to a wider selection of amenities. Kewanee has more than just a Walmart, of course, but not by much. And like many towns of this size, restaurant selections are limited. Amenities gets a 3 out of 20.
Cost of living.
Housing here in Kewanee is extremely affordable. -1 for the absurd Illinois taxes, and cost of living gets a 19 out of 20. All in all, the Chris Livability Score for Kewanee, Illinois is 75 out of 180, placing it towards the bottom out of all of the places that I've done this for so far. Kewanee's decline is tough to watch. A median age of 43, young people leaving, and no end in sight. But just an hour east of here is Streeter, a town that's very similar in size, but a very different story. You can check out that video right here on the end screen. Peace.